Welcome to This Week in Guns, a podcast that covers the latest commentary on the firearms news, information, and buzz. Brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. I'm your host, Jake Challen, president of FRN. You make this show possible. That's right. You simply click through our Amazon affiliate link the next time you're shopping online, and a small portion of your sale goes to supporting pro-gun shows like This Week in Guns. Have a great panel this week. We have Matt DeVito of Downrange Firearms Training. Hey, Matt.
What's going on, Jake?
We have Nate Murr of Kinetic Development Group and inventor of the Grip Stub. Hey, Nate.
Hey, Jake. Good to be back on.
And we have John Patton of the Gun Collective and Patton Media Consulting.
Jake.
Hey, John.
How are you?
Adam Kraut, Esquire of Firearms Industry Consulting Group and a division of Prince Law Offices PC. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Jake. How are you?
I think Adam's trying to win the race for longest intro.
So the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-hosts and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised. And we are trying to do a live feed on Facebook tonight, but it seems like the ads are taking over. So, John, why don't you take the Patriot Patch spot and plug your shirts as well?
So I want everybody to go over to patriotpatch.co/TGC. There are 2 exclusive patches that are being partnered with the remaining shirts. There's only a few shirts left. The Gun Collective logo shirt and the Guntrepreneur shirt that Matt happens to be wearing. Matt, for the viewers at home, there you go, that beautiful T-shirt. That's going to come with a lead delivery shirt. It's a little postal vehicle with a minigun on top, and that's hilarious. And the TGC logo shirt is going to come with a Come and Take It flag patch. Both of those are at no extra cost. It's an exclusive bundle. Each shirt has its own patch, and you guys should definitely go check that out now. Also, you can sign up for the Patriot Patch email for a chance to win a patch a month. You can go to Patriot Patch to find that out. Also, if you want to support Pro Gun Radio like This Week in Guns, you can go over to patreon.com/week and pledge anywhere from $1 on up to whatever amount you want based on how much value we bring you guys. There's perks like, free patches, T-shirts, supply drops, and at the $10 level, you can even hang out with the hosts, that's guys like us, after the show about 2 times a month, and it's a lot of fun, and we go on for hours and hours and hours, and the guys that have been doing it so far have basically become part of the FRN family, which is awesome. So, yeah, if you want to do that, patreon.com/week. And I guess Jake is still trying to make that Facebook feed kind of work. Let's take a second here, and I wanna say thank you to the guys that are on this show. This week has been very trying for all of us. We, as people in the firearms community that tend to have a little bit more of a voice than most, get looked to for guidance on issues like what is currently going on. And I want to say thank you to all of my friends and all of the people out there that have been very, very supportive this week. I don't know, do you guys have anything to add in that regard before we get cracking?
No, I got nothing.
Super helpful, Kraut. Thank you.
You asked if we had anything. I was
super helpful.
I don't.
Hey, I'll add something. I was hoping Adam was going to come in with some awesome legalese, stand for the Constitution kind of stuff, but apparently not. So we were talking before the show started amongst ourselves, and we were saying about how we know you guys are seeing the lies and the misinformation being put out on the media, right? Like all facets. You have people standing there pretending to be experts, talking about things that aren't right, things that are not factual. And it might seem like we're shouting into a hurricane, but it's important that everybody that supports the Second Amendment continues to do so. People are getting angry about Facebook comments. People are getting angry about all kinds of stuff on social media right now. The thing is, I think we're on the verge of seeing the biggest push for the biggest legislation being passed in the next couple months. I think they're going to go for another assault weapons ban, and I think that if we don't fight it, they're going to be successful.
All right, I'm back. Where are we at?
We were waiting on you.
We're done.
We're done.
Show's over.
Thank
Show's
goodness.
over.
Facebook live feed is up, although the audio seems to be somewhat horribly delayed, but you can, play games with that. So you can check out the. We'll try it again next week too. The live Facebook feed on the Firearms Radio Network Facebook page. But yeah, there is that. So where are we in the top stories already?
You have that link posted up on the website, or how can people watch it live on Facebook?
Just go to the Firearms Radio Network Facebook page, and it's the first post.
Oh, I see that. That's cool.
Yeah, so we're on to this week's top stories, Jake.
Top stories. Did we start with the positive news?
We didn't start anything. We were just chatting amongst ourselves. That's what happens when you let us take care of business.
And that's what happens when John's computer crashes. Otherwise, the show would have went on. So yeah, positive news. Dramatic video shows student disarming shooter at Seattle Pacific University in 2014. This shooter is actually coming up on trial here, and so this video was released. But it shows a pretty intense situation where this shooter comes in armed with a shotgun, I believe, and a daring unarmed student jumped him and was able to disarm him, and not only the shotgun but also a knife.
That's I think the one thing you see time and time again with these shootings, be it at schools or office buildings or anywhere really, you don't see people fighting back. It's almost as if people don't know that that's an actual option. And I think it's really interesting and impressive that this particular fellow took it upon himself to take the risk to fight back.
Right, and he was not in direct line of sight of this guy or anything. He came from like a room around the corner, and so like he could have just cowered there, and this guy may have never found him. So he, put himself out there and succeeded. But I think you're right. I think if a lot more people would stand up in these situations, we'd see them turn out differently.
The thing is, like, not everybody has the physical or mental ability to stand and fight, right? But the thing is, there's plenty of good people that do have that physical and mental and emotional ability to stand and fight, and they don't. And it's amazing because I feel like 50 years ago, there would be more people that if this kind of stuff was happening back then, as short as just a few decades ago, there would be more people actively fighting back. And instead, I mean, like, we're living in this world of, trigger words and safe spaces. I guess we can't expect people to fight back to the extent that maybe our forefathers did. It's surprising to me. And we're going to talk about it here, moving on with the show, about, the horrible event down in Florida. But, I was listening to the radio, and they said there's 20 people crammed in one bathroom stall trying to hide from the shooter. So when the shooter approached the bathroom stall, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. Like, instead of 20 people trying to hide, those same 20 people potentially could have overwhelmed the lone shooter. You know what I mean? It's just, I like I said, I never want to Monday morning quarterback anybody's traumatic event or anybody's gunfight or anybody's battle or anything like that. But it's amazing to me that more people don't fight. So
we'll get into the main topic this week. Basically, there's one topic: the Florida Orlando ISIS massacre at gay nightclub leaves 100+ shots. I think the final numbers were somewhere around 49 dead and 53 wounded, not counting the shooter, which was killed by the SWAT team. This title says worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Some would say it was a terrorist attack, worst terrorist attack since 9/11. I'm going to read through these headlines that are bulleted here, and then we're going to jump into this. Um, companion story: Santa Monica police arrest man with explosives and guns headed to L.A. Gay Pride Parade. Rolling Stone says why it's time to repeal the Second Amendment. Gun control now a matter of homeland security. UN Human Rights Chief says U.S. needs robust gun regulation. President says gun control and calls for assault weapons ban again. West Hollywood inundated with pro-gun / pro-gay posters. Hashtag shoot back campaign. And shooter used SIG MCX, not technically an AR-15. So who wants to jump into this first?
So if you look at all those stories, you're going to see a common thread through a bunch of them, which is this outcry for more gun control. We need to repeal the Second Amendment, which is just beyond ridiculous. Gun control is now a matter of homeland security. When we just started a few minutes ago, I said that we're all seeing the same stuff. It's all over the media. It's every news show. It's gun control, gun control, gun control, gun control. And I think this is going to be the tempo that's set pretty much between now and until the election, and maybe even past the election, where I don't really feel like they're going to let this die off like they have after recent events, like other events, right? This is such a bizarre thing, and you see it where, our president stood there and addressed it, and it was still like he was squeamish to call it for what it actually was. This wasn't a mass shooting as much as it was an Islamic terrorist attack. It was an extremist. It doesn't matter that he was domestic. He was an American citizen. It was an extremist who chose to go out and carry out his agenda and his hate on a target-rich target, which was a bunch of unarmed homosexuals dancing in a nightclub at 2 o'clock in the morning, where everybody's been drinking, everybody's not paying attention. You have loud music, so you might not hear gunshots. This is going to happen again. Every time, like San Bernardino, I'm like, this is going to happen again. It doesn't matter it's a lone wolf attack. It doesn't matter that it's one person or two people or whatever it might be. It doesn't change the fact that it's still Islamic terrorism. And I don't understand why, after 15 years of fighting the global war on terrorism against these people, we're scared to call it for what it is. Was it a hate crime? Yes, it most certainly was a hate crime. You go on YouTube and you can watch plenty of videos of what ISIS is doing to homosexuals over in Syria and Iraq. All kinds of terrible, inhumane, murderous deaths that these people are being exposed to. Was it a hate crime in the sense that, well, the majority of victims were Latino males? Well, that's another aspect of it. I mean, there's just so many things around this tragedy that we can draw from it and decipher to make our country more secure, to make it better. And the thing that we harp on is gun control. The fact that we're calling it the AR-15 when it wasn't even an AR-15 used in this shooting is amazing. There's no factual data being presented to the American people, and it's disgusting.
And the facts are especially missing from most mainstream news. We see all kinds of wild opinions being thrown around, all kinds of, wrong terminology left and right. And it's a lot of emotion out there.
So I'm going to take perhaps a slightly unpopular position here. I think the semantics regarding what the actual firearm was, the difference between it being fully automatic and semi-automatic, and some of the other stuff, I think to the majority of the argument, it's just nomenclature that nobody cares about. We know that it's not a clip, it's a magazine. We know that it's a semi-automatic rifle, it's not a fully automatic rifle. We know that it doesn't blow bodies in half, or it bruise your shoulder, or whatever PTSD excuse you want to come up with from shooting the thing and how terrifying it is. At the end of the day, it's a more or less a war of propaganda. And we were talking about this before the show, and the biggest problem that we as gun owners face is that everywhere you look, the deck is stacked against getting our side of the message out. So everywhere you look, there's constantly an onslaught of gun control this, gun control that, how horrible these things are. And you already had people who may not be very intelligent people. They may be intelligent people. They may just not want to do some research on their own. But at the end of the day, it's a war of propaganda and information. And as I said when we were off the air, it wouldn't matter if 95% of the country believed what I believe, what Nate believes, what Matt believes, John, Jake. If that message isn't getting out there, it's effective. It's just there's misinformation being put out there, and it's hard to determine where people stand on all the issues.
We've talked about the way Facebook is before. It becomes what we all call an echo chamber. It's literally the way Facebook is designed. It will continue to show things that look similar to what you interact with on a more regular basis. So if you have more conservative views, that kind of stuff will start to appear more in your social media feed. And what tends to happen in times like this is it's literally just nobody from the other side getting through to you. You can't even pretend to have a conversation with them. I know most people would scream at them and get all emotional the same way they would because they're attacking you and calling you names because, we as, pro-freedom Americans, we're being treated like criminals right now. We're being treated like terrorists right now. And this echo chamber is not helping us, and it's not helping them because they're suffering from the same thing. Everybody's just screaming in a room. We're standing in a room with a glass wall, and nobody on either side can hear the others.
So to echo what John said, and I put up in my Facebook status today, a couple hours ago, taught a class to a group of women who last week thought that guns were bad, and they didn't think that people should own them. One of the women actually, she came to the class because her husband is a customer in the gun shop, and when he first brought his gun home, she said it's either me or the gun. And now all these incidents that have happened, both locally, nationally, and globally, these women now are like, hey, you know what? We want to be able to defend ourselves too. And it's like John said, if we're constantly talking over one another, there's no exchange of information. And you have to be able to have an intelligent conversation with these people because most of the anti-gun people look at us like we're heathens. And the thing is, when we bring facts, cold hard facts that can be backed up into the argument, they've got no leg to stand on. And there has to be an information share, and we have to try and educate. And in the process of educating these people, we have to dispel all these myths and rumors. And I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but like I said to these women, I said, you all come from a part of society where you think guns are bad and the only people that should own guns are cops in the military. Well, now that you've sat through this class, you've gotten education on gun safety and owning a gun, and you folks are all going to go and purchase a firearm, you bear the burden of informing your I don't like to use the term ignorant, but your irrationally thinking friends, and you have to go tell them what you learned so they know that guns aren't bad, and we can own guns to defend ourselves as well as our loved ones. And if there's, I don't know the numbers, but however many million gun owners there are and however many million guns there are in the country, hundreds of millions of guns in the country, when you take this one incident and you isolate it compared to the number of gun owners and the number of firearms in the country, it's minute. And I don't say that meaning to, detract anything from this incident, but with the number of gun owners and the number of guns in the country, this incident, whether you want to call it domestic terrorism, whatever you want to call it. The facts stand that there are more good people out there with guns that are using firearms to defend themselves every day than there are these lone wolves, bad apples, whatever you want to call them, that are using guns in a nefarious manner.
It's a good point. The thing that I think is confusing is I don't know of one other amendment that is attacked so constantly and diligently as much as the Second Amendment. And I look at like the things that like I have some very, very liberal views about a lot of different things. And I have some very conservative views about a lot of different things. But my views as a person are based off reason and logic more so than feeling and emotion. But I don't see if you took this attack on the Second Amendment, on firearms as a whole, and you just changed it out to any other amendment, how ridiculous would that seem to your average person, right? If we were attacking the First Amendment with the same ferocity that we're attacking the Second, most people would be like, are these people insane? This is complete nonsense. But for whatever reason, it seems like, especially with Rolling Stone talking about repealing the Second Amendment as an antiquated idea or it's an obsolete concept. The thing is, it's like the AR-15. Like I see where Adam was going with this about saying that it's not the AR-15 or MCX or whatever gun was actually used in this horrific incident. It's black rifles, it's black guns, it's black semi-automatics as a whole, right? It represents the entire genre of firearm, right? And once they're successful in banning those firearms, then what next? Your scoped hunting rifle gets labeled a sniper rifle, and then they come for those, right? So what we're left with a bolt action 22s, and that's all you can have. Whatever, we all know that gun control isn't about saving the children. It's about people control. It's about the government becoming more powerful. It's about removing that right from the people, because once the people lose that right, they don't have a leg to stand on. The government can do whatever they want. Whatever tyrant wants to take power, we are literally powerless to fight back. But I don't understand this cultural belief that it's okay to attack the Second Amendment. It worked so well for us for so long, all the way up to just a few decades ago. Realistically, the last 15, 20 years. And then because the society's changed, we don't want to admit that our country's becoming weak and we're becoming a bunch of narcissists that only care about ourselves. We want to blame an inanimate object instead of saying maybe this is a problem with our civilization, our culture, and our society. It's easier to blame
what I find
that.
really interesting about this whole thing is that, we've talked about the echo chamber and education and all that sort of thing, but I find it really, really interesting how we oftentimes, even when we try to educate, it's almost as if you're arguing with a child. And I'm not calling these people children. I'm making a comparison. The education and the reason and the logic is met with, people died. People die every day. And as unfortunate as that is, as terrible as it is when we are attacked, people die every day. And that is no reason to deny the rights of Americans that did not do anything wrong. And I don't, for whatever reason, that gets thrown back at us as if their inner monologue is that somebody died, so something should change. That's it. There is no reason and logic. It's A to B and no trip. It's just they're sandwiched together almost, and it's very strange to me. And I was talking to the guys before the show started about the actual psychology of this, because we're using facts, and we know these as facts. And some people will say, oh, well, they're your facts and they're not ours and they're not real and all that sort of thing. But we agree that an AR-15 is a semi-automatic rifle that does not get up off the table and kill people. So I am of the belief that there is some kind of psychological thing that we have to understand about the people that do not accept freedom as a good thing, that would rather be controlled, that would rather be coddled. There is something going on there that we need to understand that is a much bigger thing, and it's more of a worldwide societal problem rather than a freedom versus no freedom problem.
It's a problem that Western civilization as a whole is suffering from, but it's not the same problem that the people in the Middle East are suffering from, right? Like ISIS and ISIL and the extremist jihadist fighters, they're not from the same mindset as us, right? Like, it's extremely brutal culture that these people live in. And having spent a lot of my youth over in the Middle East, it's not the same point of view that we have as Westerners. Like, we want to help people. We want to take in refugees. We want to always believe in the best in people. Every time somebody commits a terrible act like what happened in Florida this past week, we always assume that the person is insane, that they're mentally unstable, and that we could probably nip it in the bud by doing a more thorough psychological exam. You gotta understand, there's some people out there that just have evil in their heart, and they're perfectly sane. They just believe in their cause enough to carry it out and hurt people. Just because you hurt someone doesn't make that person insane, but we all feel better collectively when we label these people as just being off their rocker, and that's not always the truth. The other thing is, we talk about like the psychological thing, like, oh well, these crazy people getting guns and going on these rampages. Bear in mind, 50 years ago, we didn't have the medicine that we had today for psychological conditions. So everybody got put in asylums. There's abandoned asylums all across this country that used to be full of people, and they're empty now because we trust people to take their medicine. Then there's other psychological conditions where people go in and out of that state. Like PTSD is one of those things where you could be a normal person your entire life, you suffer a traumatic event, you have some psychological trouble, and you move past it. And you can do that without even realizing that you went through it. So how do you monitor that? I see all these calls for all this action, and I'm going to say like 95% of it wouldn't have prevented this tragedy if these measures would have been in place. The majority of these measures they're talking about forcing upon the American people aren't going to prevent other acts like this.
Well, that's because they're based on pure speculation. You know, that's something that I find really, really interesting, is that the entire argument is based on speculation. There's no hard facts there. There's no statistical evidence of why it would work or not work. They're comparing us to things that, like, people will say, what about Australia? People don't die in Australia. That's a lie. That happens every day. They ban knives in the UK, and somebody got their head chopped off in the streets.
Well, they keep, or another politician just got shot dead today in England, right?
Yeah.
So, oh my God, really?
Where there's no guns, yeah.
Yeah.
So wait. Somebody got,
Drudge.
but there's a ban.
Well, but see, they work, right?
But they keep talking about gun violence. How about just violence? Take out the tool that's being used to carry out the violence and ask, why are these people committing acts of violence no matter what it is? It doesn't matter if it's like the Happy Land massacre in the nightclub where a bunch of people got burned to death. It was more people than died in this nightclub. And that was, like 15 years ago, whatever. Like 86 people got burned to death.
That makes people much more uncomfortable than being able to blame an object.
Well, I'm blaming a gallon of gasoline the guy got at the gas station. That's what allowed him to murder that many people. Like, what I'm saying is that
it's literally the only thing that gets blamed. Firearms are literally the only thing that get blamed for the acts of murderers and terrorists.
Well, that's what if you go back, right? Let's just take a step back. This is the question that we as a society need to answer, right? Everybody wants to blame the gun, and I made this point. I got interviewed for a news segment at the shop the other day about AR-15s, and I made sure to inform the reporter that, AR-15s have been for sale to the civilian population since the 60s, right? So we've had almost 60 years of this gun being sold on the civilian market. And if you want to talk about a so-called rise in shootings, mass shootings or whatever, they've been relatively recent. What changed in society that this became acceptable? Where did the morality of society go where it's now acceptable to take another human's life, multiple humans' life, for some purpose? Or, going to the inner cities where it's now appropriate just to shoot somebody for, looking at you the wrong way or stepping on your shoes or, whatever the
But that doesn't fit the agenda.
Right, it doesn't fit the agenda. But that's the question that needs to be asked.
That's the question we should all be asking. Like,
what happened to the moral compass of society that this is acceptable in quotes because it's not, but that's acceptable behavior? How is that acceptable? Why is
what's something that doesn't get talked about often enough is the education and poverty levels in areas that are drastically more violent than others. That
Well,
is a
but
common
violence,
theory.
but violence is like if you go to any any group of uneducated people, it doesn't matter if it's an uneducated group of Americans or uneducated group of people in South America or Africa or the Middle East or Pacific Islanders, like when you have small communities of uneducated people, violence is one thing that's a constant. Like violence is a accepted part of a lot of different cultures because those cultures are more primitive than what we consider a civilized society as Westerners. So the thing is, like, for example, like in Iraq, if dad goes down to Baghdad to go on a business trip, the 12-year-old boy is the man in the house, and he can tell his mother what to do. And if mom doesn't do what she's supposed to do and follow the boy's orders, when dad comes home from his business trip and the boy reports back, hey, dad, mom didn't listen to me, the dad beats the living hell out of the woman. And there's no police, like the police are going to arrest the guy for domestic abuse because they're like, yeah, this, this is our culture. This is, the woman didn't listen. This is what happens. It's insane. But like I understand what John, where you're going with this about saying about like lack of education and violence are they're tightly intertwined. But it's not just uneducated people committing acts of violence. That might be the case in like Chicago with like street thugs, but you also have some very educated people that still commit acts of terror. You still have very educated people committing violent crime.
I'm more referencing the bulk of it. You know what I mean? Because for whatever reason, things that get highly publicized become the magical thing that is what we need to act on at the time. Based on the actual facts, mass shootings are a very, 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 very small percentage of the deaths in America.
That's correct. And firearms,
very, very small, less than 1%.
And firearms themselves are actually a smaller tool in comparison to fists and kicking someone to death and bludgeoning them to death and stabbing them to death and all these other weapons that human beings have used for the history of humanity to hurt other human beings.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Is like,
but now we have a 24-hour news cycle. All of this is right in our face all the time, constantly. Facebook, Instagram, the TV, everywhere. It's always there all the time. And people have this perceived notion that there's more violence, more car crashes, more kids getting ate by alligators, everything like that. And the reality is, if you look at the 70s had way more car crash fatalities, way more, violent crime. So, why wasn't, our parents or grandparents, why weren't they, why are they more freaked out now, maybe, than they were back then? Well, back then it wasn't a 24-hour news cycle. They didn't have it popping up on their Facebook feed. It came in the newspaper a day, 2 days later, a week later. You go further back in time, that news came across much later and much more detached from, if you're in the 1800s and you see a train accident out in Colorado killed 100 people. Well,
2 months ago.
That's
yeah.
I mean, yeah,
you're
2 months
removed from it. Yeah.
You're so detached from that it's not that big of a deal, maybe.
Well, it's also that those were actual reports done by, hopefully, I can't speak for the 70s, but those were actual reports, not editorials.
Right.
We have live editorials going on.
Well, that's true too. That the news has changed so much where
it's not news anymore. It's
opinion.
We have one itty bitty little story, and then we are going to speculate until
it's
3 weeks from now.
It's a very intentionally packaged product that they sell.
Agreed.
What is going to sell, and I mean that's why guns are in all the movies, because guns sell. That, I mean, literally, that's why people buy guns. Because they're cool, they're edgy, so that's why they put them in all the movies. So why not package your news with as much gun violence as possible?
I think the issue is, and again, it goes back to the education thing, and with so much access to the internet. I mean, if the 5 of us sit here, 4 of us, and no, there's 5 of us. I don't do math.
I know math's so good.
I don't math good. And we look over our Facebook timelines, we look over our Instagram, we look over our Twitter feeds. There is so much misinformation in 24 hours about what happened in Orlando that it's scary. Everybody becomes an expert. And like John said, it's this echo chamber because this person heard this and they heard that from this person, and it becomes like a game of telephone. And with all that information at our fingertips these days, it's so easy for somebody to take something and misconstrue it. And, a perfect example is I got interviewed last night for the gun shop about this woman called and she wanted to do a piece about selling guns on Instagram. And she's like, oh, you sell guns on Instagram? I go, no, we advertise firearms on Instagram. It's against the Instagram policy to sell a firearm online, and the guns go from our FFL to a different FFL, and the person has to get a background check done. But there's this stigma and these myths that are out there that are just perpetuated by, again, it's a social media, it's a news in your face thing, and somebody hears one thing, they take it for fact because it was on the internet, so it must be true. And they take it, and it goes down the line in this bad game of telephone, and then again we have all this horrible misinformation out there. And
well, it's a paraphrase of a paraphrase of a paraphrase of a paraphrase.
Right.
But how many years have we been hearing about the gun show loophole that doesn't exist?
Oh my
God. The internet loophole that doesn't exist, right? I keep hearing about this gun show loophole, and they love that. Like the anti-gunners love the loophole this, loophole that. Like, do they not understand that the federal 4473 form is mandatory for all gun purchases from a dealer?
It doesn't matter though. The actual reality of the situation makes no difference. You have the narrative of the gun show loophole that you can buy guns online, and what do the public think? Doesn't matter what it actually entails. Perfect example.
What have we convinced them of?
Right. When the reporter came to interview me, I made sure, I said, before we turn on the cameras, is there anything you want to know, you want to talk about? Is there anything I can, explain to you prior to doing whatever on camera? And if you want, I'll repeat it on camera. But so that way I can help educate you while you're here, because you came out here and I want you to leave with some more knowledge than you came with. So we ended up talking, and some of it got on camera that never made this news segment, but he asked me about, different triggers because he had been with that police trainer prior, and the police trainer gave him a lot of either bad information or intentionally bad information.
The guy that ate all the donuts?
Yeah, that one.
Oh,
and
okay.
then the other point I wanted to make real quick, because there's been articles floating around about this recently, is that with the internet now, where you used to have to go to a book and look up stuff, with everything being at your fingertips, there's two things going on. One, you're looking up stuff for whatever the proposition is, you're getting the information, and you're not retaining it. The second part of that is that now there's question as to, do you just accept everything as truth? So you head to Google, you type in, whatever your search query is, and it pops up on the side, blah, blah, blah information. Do you just accept that as truth? Because Google said it, and Google's a reliable source. So do you even question the information you're gathering now? It's an interesting question.
In that same vein, I don't remember where I saw it, so I apologize ahead of time, but I saw a quote that said that Mark Zuckerberg is the dictator of the world's largest nation. Think about that for 2 seconds.
Yep.
If Facebook, as a company, decided to do something like purposely show you a specific topic, they could literally sway the vote in this country.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about that for a second. These entities, I mean, Google could do the same thing, but these gigantic entities, they have a lot of control, and it's terrifying, honestly, because where do you go for the truth? That you used to be able to go, I'll go to the library. That's where the truth is. I will read it in a book. That's the truth.
Yeah, but now they delete history.
Right, now we're in a society where everything gets questioned and nothing is true.
Where do I go? I'm going to middle of nowhere, Wyoming, throwing out my phone and computer, and yeah, I'm just going to live off the land.
That's all right. We'll find you with a drone pretty quick.
Because we didn't give that up.
That.
Damn it.
So go ahead, Jake.
Let's get out of these bullet points. I want to hit on a few more topics relating to this incident. So records show shooter had high scores on firearms test and passed psych eval.
Who cares?
Okay.
You want to talk about that? Because the only thing that does is undermine the idea of background checks are going to solve anything. I mean, if we're going to talk about it, you know, the other individual side, whatever you want to call them, scream, we need background checks, we need background checks, we need background checks. Well, the reality of the situation is anybody who buys a gun from an FFL undergoes background check in some capacity.
Conducted by the government.
So all these people that are screaming, you know, we got to get these kinds of guns off the street. They're also saying we can't let these kinds of people get guns. Well, what kind of person was this?
Well,
So,
and that's what begs the question, though. How do you figure it out? Because he passed not only the background check to purchase the gun, he was also a licensed, whatever the Florida's state security guard is, which requires background checks and training. And I believe he did additional training, and there may have been another check. He worked for Department of Homeland Security, if I understand correctly, and I honestly haven't done a lot of reading about him because
as a contractor through G4S.
G4S.
Okay,
Which,
all right.
which up till recently was also a huge contractor for nuclear power plants across America as well. So that's a strategic asset. What kind of person was this guy? It's pretty obvious what kind of person he was. He's somebody that called 911 and pledged his allegiance to ISIS, and to that was his alliance, right? Like, let's look at it like this. Do you remember a couple years ago there's an U.S. Army officer, a major at Fort Hood, who swore an oath to defend the American people and uphold the Constitution, and he still went in and started killing people.
Workplace violence.
Workplace that got dismissed.
And there's the narrative, though.
There's the narrative.
This wasn't terrorism. This was just
It's
violence.
It's another example of today's society not placing blame because they don't want to hurt any one group or faction or anything else. So it's why people do what they do, because they're not going to get blamed, because we don't want to hurt any feelings, plain and simple. It's not domestic terrorism. You can't blame an entire religion for the actions of one. It's all that BS. And don't even get me started.
But what I'm saying is, like, with this article about how the shooter had high scores in marksmanship, that's fine. I've taught third world people how to shoot accurately. That's not that difficult, right? You don't have to be. If you're insane, that doesn't affect your high scores in marksmanship, right? The fact that he passed the psych eval, that's actually a very telling thing. And this goes into what I'm saying is that I don't necessarily think the guy was like this crazy dude. He was probably very aware of what he was doing. And hatred does not affect your intelligence. It does not affect your psychological state in the sense that it makes you crazy. It might make you do crazy things, but it doesn't necessarily make you a psychopath, right? Like, everybody wants to believe that this guy was insane, but that might not be the case. It could just be something as simple as him believing in his cause. Because I fought a lot of very competent, intelligent people that believe in their cause overseas. So why would it be any different here in America?
I think one of the biggest issues we run into is people want to think that this is preventable. And I'm not sure it is.
Human nature, the last 13,000 years of human nature dictates otherwise. It kind of says that we as human beings are always going to perpetuate violence on other human beings.
But here's the thing,
that's going to stop that.
We've been able, with modern medicine, we've been able to prevent a lot of bad things from happening to people. Right? With modern technology, that is a fantastic mug. He's drinking out of a gun mug. With modern technology, we've been able to just defeat a lot of the evils of our past, a lot of the bad things, right? And because this is 2016, people just assume that something can be prevented.
They don't,
even if it's human nature.
They don't make medicine.
I agree with you, Nate. I understand that.
All kinds of psychological
that is something that is fully believed. We can prevent this, and I am here to say, no, we cannot.
The only medicine for evil is a jacketed hollow point, a nice lead pill.
Right. Well, and people are trying to say this guy was crazy. How can we prevent crazy?
Because it makes us feel better as a society. It makes us believe that our neighbor isn't capable of doing that, or our son's not capable of doing that.
And people don't want to admit that there's evil in this world, and that the worst kind of evil is very intelligent and very intentional.
Look at, like, this dude's father who immigrated over from Afghanistan, who grew up in the Taliban era, grew up in that culture, it was like he was trying to blame it on things other than what it was. He's trying to say, well, my son didn't like homosexuals, and his father did not want to say why he actually did it. I mean, like, yeah, it was apparent that the guy hated homosexuals, but that's kind of a religious belief of Islam. If you go to every Arab nation that's Muslim and look at how they treat homosexuals, you're not like it's either death or imprisonment for the rest of your life. It's not like if you're a homosexual, you're not going to have a good time in the Middle East. I'm going to tell you that right now. So the thing is, like, it's almost like his dad was apologizing and trying to cover for it the true intent of why he did what he did. Like, let's focus on the hate crime aspect of this instead of the fact that an American citizen murdered 49 other American citizens and ruined the lives of countless others.
But it's no different than the politicians and the news media. Nobody wants to say what it is. For fear of hurting somebody's feelings. It's ridiculous.
We've been fighting this war for 15 years, and we're scared to call a spade a spade. We're scared to say what it actually is. We just want to make it workworkplace vielse. We want to make it a mass shooting. We want to make it violence.
And you admit the truth,
then you become
a nut. You become a fanatic on your own. Because if you are a hard force against a hard force, somehow something has to happen. One has to become the quote-unquote victor in this case. That's the way humans work. This is a problem. I am the solution. Something is the solution. Fix it, right? But we by admitting what it is, we then admit, like you just said, that we have to do something, and that we would have a solution or go after finding a solution, and people are afraid to find out what that solution might be.
Because it might hurt somebody's feelings.
The solution to our problems is sometimes scarier to people than the actual problem itself.
All right, speaking of hurt feelings and other things, Daily News reporter claims AR-15 bruised his shoulder and gave him PTSD.
Was that a work of fiction? Because that's what it read like.
No, this is why this stuff happens. It's weakness like this in our society and culture that allow things like this to happen. There's 8-year-old children that shoot AR-15s in competition and love it, have no trouble doing it. But this dude goes out and shoots a rifle, and it traumatizes him. It makes him suffer from PTSD. It's just,
I mean, at that point, he would get PTSD going to the drag strip.
He said
loud noises.
He said it was horrifying, dangerous, and very, very loud.
The brass coming out of the gun was disorientating.
Yeah, the best is the quote in here. The recoil bruised my shoulder. The brass shell casing disoriented me as they flew past my face. The explosions like a bomb gave me a temporary case of PTSD. I was anxious and irritable. Really?
How do we teach 18-year-old kids to shoot machine guns their first year of military service? Like, how do we teach the Army and the Marine Corps to shoot Barrett 50 cals?
So there was literally a video, like a mashup thing that somebody had done, and there was another quote-unquote journalist that cried on camera shooting an AR-15, but someone took a clip that Ebbs has up on YouTube. Ebbs from House of Guns is on the show very frequently. He has a video on his YouTube channel of his daughter, his young daughter. I want to say she was like 7, something. I don't know. She's very young, shooting an AR-15. So somebody took that clip and then put the guy crying right after it. and, the Ebbs is in the background going, well, how was that? And she goes, it was good. And then it cuts to him crying about shooting a rifle. It's unbelievable. I mean, really, like, what is really going on there when somebody is saying it bruised me? An AR-15, which we as firearms enthusiasts understand to be minimal recoil. Minimal. Very, very little recoil. Why is he thinking that this is a good way to go? Did someone in his life teach him to be a complete and utter piece of crap?
But again, it's the narrative, right? You and I know that that's ridiculous. It's an absurd thought. But to the uninformed masses, those who haven't been exposed to guns, etc.,
the thing is,
it could be very true.
It's not like this guy lost his man card. He lost that a long time ago. But I think what he was trying to do is making this make the AR-15 as this terrible, destructive, evil. Just like even you pick it up and it even hurts you in return, and just he's trying to demonize the weapon further by talking. I think that's what his approach to us is.
So I'm going to say this before we get too much farther away from this, because there's a lot more to talk about. If you go to the TGC Facebook page, I posted something that you can share with your friends, and let me pull it up here so that I can read it verbatim. And it's essentially a way to show people that these AR-15s are not scary like the media is pretending. Let me find the direct quote here. I'm sorry, this was earlier today, and Facebook is really not happy with me. Okay. A call to any one of my Facebook friends. If you are unsure or uncomfortable or even curious about guns, let's find time and go to the range. I'm not here to do anything but help you get educated on both sides of the argument. And that is something that I encourage every single one of you out there listening, watching, whatever, to do with your friends. Give them the opportunity to be educated. Don't take them to the range and go, you're going to love guns. Take them to the range and show them why you love guns. Don't force it upon them. Allow them to enjoy it.
It's definitely easier to win people over to our side doing it that way than badgering them on Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
It's mostly like, hey, listen, like I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm not going to argue with you. All I'm going to ask of you is just to please spend one afternoon with me and just so you can see where I'm coming from with this. Like I've taken people that are vehemently against guns and taken them out to the range over the years, and now they own more guns than I do. Like
they've never had that experience.
They've never had it, and like, look, like I'm terrified. I was terrified of chainsaws until this year, right? Like that was my fear of an inanimate object. And now I have a chainsaw. I give the respect that it deserves. I'm aware that I'm running the chainsaw, and that if I lose focus, I can hurt myself very severely with it. If I'm not aware of my surroundings, I can hurt somebody else with it, right? But it wasn't until I went and like cut a metric ton of wood this past fall with a chainsaw that I learned to respect it and get over my irrational fear of an inanimate object. So, I mean, I'm looking at that lesson of the chainsaw for me as a grown man, right? And I'm thinking about, like, if you've never shot a gun or let alone even held one, and you have your belief system, you believe that guns are evil, the easiest way to convince people otherwise is to get them on the range for the afternoon. And to be a good steward about it, not to be mean about it, but to be patient and understanding and maybe have that conversation after the range.
NRA says to Trump, no guns for terrorists, but due process first. This is relating to a tweet that Trump sent out. I will be meeting with the NRA, who has endorsed me, about not allowing people on the terrorist watch list or the no-fly list to buy guns.
People went ballistic about that.
Yeah.
And then we had breaking news today that the Senate Republicans agreed to 2 gun control votes, no fly, no buy, and universal background checks.
So let's avoid the conversation about why somebody is on a secret list anyway, right? Let's just forget about the fact that the government has a list of people that they are not willing to divulge to the public that are not okay to fly on planes.
And that we don't know how people get on it.
Right.
Exactly, and we don't know how people get off it.
But there's members of TSA on that list, but it's still going to do their job.
There was U.S. senators on the list. Ted Kennedy, while a horrible drunk, he was on that list.
Well, he very well could be a terrorist, to be fair.
And a murderer.
I want Adam Crowd to talk about due process here, because this is actually, there's bigger implications to this than just this whole gun control thing about it. This is scary, because what gets you on that list and what gets you off that list if you're falsely put on it? To me, it sounds like the government can arbitrarily put anybody they want on this list, and now you lose your rights to own firearms. They just took away a constitutional right because you got put on a list for what? Suspicion? What crime was committed? Adam.
And that's the problem with the list in general, and that's why the ACLU, for that matter, has been fighting this in court for the last year, 2 years. They've been against this in the context of the no-fly. So how are you going to take it and add a constitutional right to that same list where you aren't sure how you're put on there? And the better question is, how do you get off of the list? You're denying anybody the opportunity to be heard, and it's scary. It's really scary, because while in this particular context we're talking about the Second Amendment, if that's successfully added to it, what's the next thing that gets added to it? Because you know it's not going to stop there.
The First Amendment.
Well,
Probably the next.
go on, and you know, and it's an extremely slippery slope in the fact that we're having these we're having lists created is just mind-boggling anyway.
So there's actually a really, really good video that's flying around of somebody that is a true American. His name's Trey Gowdy. He's a representative from South Carolina, the 4th District. And he is questioning this on the floor. And it's impressive because he's just literally going... He's saying what we all want to say to the people up there in Washington, and he's saying things like, okay, well, what's next? Are we just going to not... We're just going to put people on a list and then make them petition to get off of that list when they didn't do anything wrong? And they don't even know that they're on a list? Like, this is ridiculous.
So, like, you could get put on this list, right, hypothetically, and now you can't own a firearm anymore. Nobody told you that you're on this list. You go to the gun shop to buy a new gun because you don't know you're on the list, and now you committed a felony by attempting to purchase a firearm, but you're on this list. Like, you made yourself
you didn't know about, and you did not commit a felony necessarily to get on.
Exactly.
Yeah, the whole thing is just it's ridiculous that we're even having this conversation about.
Well, it's all the illusion of safety.
Well, and I think that's the most disconcerting thing is that people think they're actually being kept safe, and there was a great conversation going on in the YouTube chat where your buddy Nate Captain Burrs is in there with some other guys, and they were talking about earlier freedom's dirty and scary, and that you're actually responsible for your own safety, and there's a divide in this country where you have half the country that's willing and wants to take responsibility for their own safety, and the other half don't. They just want to be coddled by the...
Freedom is a heavy burden, but it's a burden worth bearing. It's like freedom's not easy. It requires us all to buy into it and to all put into that system for it to be successful.
Unfortunately, there's no app for that.
There is no app for that.
Right, and you have an entirely different society today than you did when that idea came into fruition.
Well, that's what we were talking about, like with amending the Constitution or remove the Second Amendment, or to put more restrictive. There's already hundreds of gun laws out there. There's plenty of good gun laws to keep bad guys from getting guns, and for whatever reason, they keep failing. So to make it more oppressive for normal, law-abiding, sane citizens that own firearms, or to restrict what type of firearm they can own, it's ridiculous because it's like saying that... I completely lost my train of thought there. I got so angry. I was like so angry about it. But it's like saying, but that's like what I'm saying is, it's like maybe the document isn't obsolete. Maybe our culture, we pride ourselves. We think because it's 2016 that this is the most advanced society's ever been. That obviously is better than the society that existed before. But what if it's the opposite? What if it's we've lost our values, we've lost appreciation for human life, we've lost appreciation for community and taking care of your neighbor? Maybe that's the real reason that this stuff is happening. But that's the change that to go back to the way it was, which might have been a better system, that would require a great amount of work for all citizens to put in, and it's work that people aren't willing to put in the first place.
Well said. Bill O'Reilly bails on the Bill of Rights and calls for gun control, and Fox reporter Gretchen Carlson calls for AR-15 ban. So we're seeing these more center or conservative news personalities jump on the gun control bandwagon here.
You know what's great about this? I didn't care what they thought anyway.
I didn't give a flying timestamp what Bill O'Reilly thought in the first place.
Literally, these people hold no weight in my head. It's frustrating when people that once were Second Amendment supporters decide to change their mind based on pressure from the outside world and ratings that are failing. But literally, Bill O'Reilly can go suck a railroad spike. I don't care.
It's funny because we were talking about this off the air, and I went on some tirade about celebrities, and why do people care what they think? And it basically came down to that they can't think for themselves, so somebody else has to do it for them. And unfortunately, I think that this will affect some people the way they think about things.
Look, this is what he said. There is too much gun crime in USA, and high-powered weaponry is too easy to get. That's a fact, so let's deal with it. We all have the right to bear arms, but we don't have the right to buy and maintain mortars. Even if you feel threatened by gangsters or a New World Order, no bazookas, no Sherman tanks, no hand grenades. Now let's think about this. When is the last time you guys heard about a 7-Eleven getting robbed with a bazooka? Or the last time MS-13 used a Sherman tank to knock off their competition? Or when's the last time a hand grenade got used in a crime, period, right? So, or a mortar system. Nobody has a right to buy and maintain a mortar, a Sherman, a bazooka, or a hand grenade. These aren't even things being used in violent crime. These aren't things being used anywhere. And here's the funny thing is, if you want to buy a bazooka, you can buy a bazooka, Class 3. If you want to buy a Sherman tank with an operational howitzer in it, Class 3. If you want to buy a hand grenade, Class 3, and a huge mountain of just a huge pain in the butt. So you can own all these things. And there's people in America that do. And those aren't the people that hurt people.
They're all federally governed.
They're all federally governed.
The FBI checks you out, but you can get it.
You know what's funny? This brings us back to the online gun sales and private gun sales thing. And somebody said that, I had a discussion, and somebody said that Arms List and Gun Broker were like Amazon and eBay. I said, well, they are not, because you cannot receive those items to your home. If you're buying them from a different state, you cannot receive them to your home. So pretending that they are an online merchant of the sort is just a lie. And I think it's really, really funny that people just buy into their own crap so hard.
It's like buying real estate online. If you buy real estate online somehow, you can give them the money, but you're still going to have to sit in an office and fill out a bunch of paperwork to make it final for it to actually be yours. It's ridiculous.
And again, we keep coming back around to this whole education thing because people say, you can buy this on Gunbrook, you can get this delivered to your house, blah, blah, blah. Here, you can get this delivered to your house. It's an unregulated item that can't do anything without the serialized part right here that you need to go to a gun store and pass a federal background check for. But people see this, and the uneducated masses they see this, and they relate this to an AR-15. Everybody here in this panel, everybody that's going to tune in says, hey, that's an upper. That doesn't do anything. But
DeVito, how much you want for that upper, dude? That's
fine. You can't.
That's
nice.
Have
that.
DeVito likes to tease us. But you know what I was getting at is that there was discussion of criminals using Arms List and Gun Broker to illegally purchase weapons, and I simply brought up the fact that that criminalizes everybody in the situation. Also, why would they go through the trouble of going online, finding somebody, and tracking...
When he can just do a straw purchase, just get your buddy.
When he can do a straw purchase, when he can go down to the hobo under the bridge that's your local friendly arms dealer in some cities. These type of people exist, right? And typically the guns are priced way differently and are just laughable. But that's easier than going online and potentially getting arrested or pointed out by a law-abiding citizen. Why would they go through that trouble when they can just go through it? And
like, look at the cartels. Where do they get their weapons from?
Eric Holder.
Well, aside from Eric Holder, the U.S. federal government, right? But the thing is that just like we smuggle drugs into this country. Like, you take all the guns that are legally owned in America and destroy them, and there's still going to be violent crime. There's probably going to be more violent crime because there's still going to be illegal firearms. Bad guys will always find a way. And the thing is, the measures that we have in place it's a pretty good system. I don't really have any complaints against the federal background check. I don't have a complaint about the 4473. I don't have a complaint about the system that's in place. But the thing is, you can make it more oppressive, and the only thing it's going to do is it's going to make it harder for good people to get guns, and it's probably going to make it easier for bad guys to be successful in what they want to do.
You know what's funny? Pipes exist, so guns exist.
Yes, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say, You look at any prison documentary or anything like that. I mean, people
Zip
are making
guns, yeah.
exactly, yeah. A kid can make a zip gun.
If you have the internet and a
Look at Royal
hardware store,
Nunsuch.
yeah, if you have a hardware store and the internet, you can make a gun.
I mean,
Right.
But these people aren't doing that, though. The bad guys
Well,
aren't.
here's a more important thing. You can do it legally.
right,
These are not illegal things to do, and they're awesome.
right. I mean,
You can literally make a gun with a soup can and soda cans. You can literally turn your soup can into a forge and melt down soda cans and make a gun out of that legally.
you should put a disclaimer. The Gun Collective does not endorse that, but
No, it's okay. That was
I totally endorse that shenanigans.
All right, this week in Guns and Firearms Radio Network. Do not. Moving on. Academy Sporting Goods pulling modern sporting rifles from the shelves. Companion stories citing Orlando. Academy pulls most semi-auto rifles from displays. And then Daniel Defense terminates relationship with Academy Sports.
I was so happy to see that.
good. That's
A
awesome.
company as large as Daniel Defense in our industry, as a kind of industry leader, so to speak, making a stance like that very quickly. This was not like this is not 2 weeks from now making this call. They did this quickly.
The thing about it is Academy is not like a small chain by itself. I mean, it's a pretty sizable chain, primarily in the South and the Midwest, right? Like the Bible Belt of America, more conservative states. And for them to do this knee-jerk reaction where they're not going to carry semi-automatic rifles anymore, is just...
It's the same thing Dick's did right after Sandy Hook.
Yeah, it's them buckling to the pressure.
How's Dick's doing financially right now?
Well, let's be honest. Let's be honest. They weren't big into selling guns anyway. That's not their main thing.
It's and again, it's I don't know anybody that knows much about guns that would ever go into a Dick's or an Academy to buy an AR-15.
But the problem there is the people that do go in there to buy firearms are the people that need the most education.
They're the new shooters, yeah.
And they're not going to get it from there because you've
Well,
got
we
$8
know that now,
employees.
but Matt, the problem is you used to think that Cheaper Than Dirt might have been you maybe at one time thought Cheaper Than Dirt was a great place to buy things because you didn't know any better.
Right.
You used to think that I don't know. There's plenty of things about firearms that you could have learned along the way, and these people, unfortunately, are seeing this move from Academy, and there are people that will literally get swayed by that. Well, Academy says they're not okay, so they're not okay.
Yeah, like I actually see where John's going with this. Like, it's like saying like if Academy is like your local gun shop, there's no other gun shops around you, but there's a big Academy right down the street from you, and you've been there before, and you've been on the fence about buying an AR-15, and then all of a sudden all the AR-15s disappear. It's like saying this giant corporate entity is acknowledging that this gun is bad, like the media is saying. It's like reinforcing the stigma that the weapon is inherently somehow more dangerous than any other firearm. It's backing up that agenda is what it's doing.
Right.
California lawmakers full steam ahead on 11 gun control bills.
Hey, have we figured out how to fracture the San Andreas yet?
Just make it sink right into the ocean.
Well,
Done.
we had a
See you
listener
later.
make a meme for us for this, so
I mean, literally, the guy that said 30 caliber clip in half a second.
Ghost gun.
That
Ghost gun.
genius is one of the biggest proponents of this garbage.
Isn't he also being investigated for crimes?
Oh, what, like Hillary Clinton?
No, that was
that's my favorite, by the way. That he's up there saying you need a background check, or if you're under investigation by the FBI, you shouldn't be able to own a gun. The irony is
Foot
sickening.
in mouth.
Yeah.
You
Sorry,
know what I
Matt.
don't understand is California has such a huge amount of people that own guns there. Where are they all, and why are they letting this happen?
They're not just letting it happen. This is a very complex situation. To say they're letting it happen is unfair to the people in California.
I know. It's just, I know so many people that own guns. I've taught classes there, and the firearms community there is so strong. I just don't know how
But it's still small. It's still the minority in comparison to all the other anti-gunners in that state.
And they get steamrolled. You want to know what state has the most NFA firearms?
Yes. Go ahead.
Take a guess.
California, because all
There
the
you
prop
go.
houses.
Yeah.
So let's really quick cover the different things that they're talking about right now. Bullet button loophole, redefining the word firearm to include an unfinished frame or receiver that can be readily converted to the functional condition of a finished frame or receiver. So basically, a chunk of aluminum will now be illegal in California.
And all plumbing pipes.
And pipes, because you can make a 12 gauge out of a pipe. They're talking about waiting periods of 30 days.
Oh,
Let's just go full stupid right ahead.
There was something about an ammunition database. I'm briefly trying to skim through this and find the keys here.
one of the things I heard was a tax on ammunition. It was like a 20% tax or something crazy like that. And it's like,
sure.
I mean,
and we've seen that here in Illinois. Cook County has a huge tax on ammunition.
Really?
Yeah.
wow.
People go outside the county to buy their ammo now.
Can you guys get ammo shipped there?
No.
Wow.
No.
So
I have a good friend that lived. He may still live in Cook County, but he would literally like go
ship to Cook County. I don't know how that works, but I can, as long as you have a FOID card in Illinois, you can have ammo shipped to you from most retailers.
Yeah.
So, we're seeing the California lawmakers here just use, they're dancing on the dead here and just pushing their agenda through because they can, which is unfortunate. And it's unfortunate for other states because, a state like mine, like Illinois, we were very close to having suppressors pushed through, and I'm afraid we may have missed that window here for a time period.
Because tubes and baffles are bad.
Well, you can kill people quietly.
Right. So, I need to skip some stories here. We're running really over on time. We had an article about the Voice singer shot dead after concert. This happened very close to where the Orlando shooting happened.
It was 2 days before. Her name was Christina Grimmie.
And it was, from what I saw, it was premeditated and everything, just terrible. But you can read that in the show notes. Too many stories this week. Let's talk real quickly about this company is facing tremendous backlash for hosting Hillary Clinton.
Team Wendy.
So what is Team Wendy for those that don't know?
Nothing anymore.
Team Wendy was a company that made ballistic and bump helmets. They made a lot of military-style helmets, and I would say that that's probably one of their biggest demographics is military and law people that need ballistic helmets, right? So anyway, they decided it was going to be a good idea to not only host Hillary Clinton to come to their factory and grandstand and soapbox all of her lies and nonsense, but they're also going to be very proud and unrepenting about it. So I mean, it's not a secret. Like my company KDG is currently working on doing some helmet-centric things. Modular accessories that work with M-Lock, right? We have it for our rifles already. Now we're doing helmet-centric things with the company M-Tech. So I talked to M-Tech the other day, which is a helmet company that's primarily staffed with former and current military guys, and they're like, yeah, we can't believe that this is what happened. Like that's your core customer base right there. It's the blue-collar conservative warfighter or LE or guy that wants to buy a ballistic helmet. Like that's your market. How could you possibly think this is a good idea to have host Hillary Clinton? And then to make it even worse, I think that was Monday that she was at the factory. This whole thing flared up on Saturday, and then Sunday you had this terrible massacre, this terrorist attack down in Florida. So what do you think she talked about on Monday?
Gun control.
Yep.
So it's not looking good for Team Wendy. I'm sure they'll stick around. They make safety equipment, they make stuff for like other industries other
They
than.
make stuff for
Mountaineers.
Democrats and other idiots.
Yeah.
But I think, like, from what I understand, talking to various people, like, a lot of the police departments had orders in or canceling their orders. You had a lot of individuals.
Yeah, the night vision
Yeah.
company.
All their
Done.
dealers are jumping ship. I mean, they made a good product. The Team Wendy helmets were good helmets, but helmet market's really competitive anyway. So there's no reason to give them your money when you could give your money to their competition that doesn't support the same stuff. Like, they flat out gave donations to Obama, which that kind of came out in the whole process, and they also donated a lot of money to Hillary's campaign, which makes sense for her to why she's there at their factory. But the whole thing's a train wreck.
I came out on my personal Facebook immediately after this happened, and I said, wait, let's wait a second here. Maybe there's something that we don't know that's going on. Maybe they're inviting Hillary Clinton to the factory to I don't know, have some de facto debate or something like that, and then literally all of the hard points of them donating and the owner is actually a big Hillary Clinton supporter. All of that came out, and I was like, well, F them, goodbye. Like, it's insanity. I can't believe it.
All right, let's keep moving. Gifford's Goons, top retired military brass, join Gabby Gifford's gun control group.
Well, can we call them traitors? Is that okay?
As you should.
Oh, I got it. It's General Betrayus.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had that nickname long before.
Oh.
Even before he became, started working for the CIA. So if you guys don't remember, General Petraeus was an Army general, left. I think he was director of the CIA. He was forced to step down because he was banging this chick that was writing like a biography of him. He divulged classified information to this lady. The whole thing was a train wreck. But we haven't heard much from the guy lately, and all of a sudden he's back in the spotlight for backing Americans for Responsible Solutions, a nonprofit lobbying organization working on gun control issues. He's also trying to promote a veteran, like U.S. Armed Forces veteran-centric component for gun control, which is just hilarious. Like, I went on the Facebook page the other day and looked at it, and it's enjoy your 200 followers, guy. McChrystal. But like, the thing is, like, when you have generals like General Petraeus, General McChrystal, which that sounds impressive that these guys were generals and they were high-ranking generals at that. They are positions of authority. For these two, guys to start supporting gun control, that does not bode well with anybody on the right or anybody that's in support of the Second Amendment, because they're basically using their careers and their clout and their prestige from those military careers to push this agenda.
Okay, let's keep moving here. $1.8 million award rejected in Jesse Ventura's case against American Sniper, or Chris Kyle's widow, basically here.
Scumbag.
Good. What scumbag? Doesn't even start to describe Jesse Ventura.
Yep.
Going after Chris Kyle's widow over something Chris Kyle said in a book. So it's good. I'm glad to see that the court shot that down.
He is becoming a caricature of himself.
Looks like the Crypt Keeper.
He looks like a bad guy from the original Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren.
All right, is the government set to melt down CMP 1911s?
Oh, John
What?
McCain wants that to happen.
F him too.
You know what pisses me off right now? You know what really grinds my gears? That everything in the world gets shoved into the Defense Authorization Act. Why? Why is this happening? Why are we shoving things that don't make any sense to the actual defense of our country into a Defense Authorization Act?
These guns are actually owned by the Defense Department, though. They made
I understand that, but melting them down, these are firearms. These are potential ways for us to defend ourselves.
I think it was back in the 1960s. Like, they made this thing where they didn't want surplus handguns showing up in street crime, so the government stopped decommissioning handguns and selling them through the CMP and other programs. Right? Like I had when I was a kid, I had a buddy of mine who bought a World War II 1911 brand new in the box that was surplus for $7, like
Holy
brand new
crap.
Colt, right? So the thing is, like, these guns, like, they produce a metric ton. Like, I think it was like 1.5 million 1911s made in World War II, right? So the thing was, they had enough 1911s to last the armed forces for the next 50 years. And when they decommissioned the 1911 and 1980s, they just put them all in storage. And that's usually what we do. We either put guns in storage, or we sell them or give them to allied nations for them to use in their military, right? So 1911, it shoots a 45 ACP, 9 millimeters NATO standard, so not everybody wanted the 1911. We put them in storage. Marine Corps Armorers 2112s used to build the old special MUSOC 45s out of these guns. They would pull them out of storage and put custom slides on them and do all this custom work on them, and that's how they used to make those badass 1911s we used to have, right? So the thing is, like, it's still U.S. government property, just like a decommissioned Maldeus 50 cal would be U.S. property. So, I mean, I understand that point of it, but the whole thing was the CMP project said that they're going to be successful in the first time in like a couple decades of being able to sell these beautiful relics. That's what they are. I mean, like a World War II Colt 1911, they're like, what, DeVito? What's the 80% Colt 1911 from World War II?
$2,000
like,
easy.
$2,000 easy, right? So these things, like, they're desirable to the collector's market. It's not like, if you're going to spend, I'm sure they were going to be expensive through CMP. It wasn't going to be like a $300 handgun. It's stupid. That's what it is. It's playing into everything else we talked this evening about. Like, oh, we can't flood the market with these powerful handguns. We all know 45 will blow a man against the wall, right? So
at the end of the day, they're destroying American history.
that's really what they're doing. They're destroying American history. So
I'm offended. This should have been in the I'm offended section. Got to keep moving. New Jersey school rejects teens gun-toting, flag-waving art project.
Dude's picture's awesome.
It is awesome.
I'm gonna go look.
Kid gets a medal. Moving on.
Oh, this is about as America as it gets right there.
He's a lifetime member of the NRA. He's a member of 2 state shooting teams, and he serves as a United States Sea Cadet, hoping to join the Marines someday.
I want to find this kid and give him a bunch of swag.
Yeah, that kid is awesome.
Joshua Bruner. That's the kid's name.
My favorite part about all this, if you look at the school policy, it's literally you can't exercise your First Amendment right showing your Second Amendment right. It's amazing, actually. It's an amazing trampling of constitutional rights right there.
Yeah, he's got the American flag in one hand and a Remington pump in the other. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with this picture. We need more kids like this. It is. That is true.
Wrong.
But we need more 15-year-old boys like Joshua Bruner in this country. If there was more guys like him, I'd have more hope for our future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, too many stories to cover this week. Overflow. Support us via Patreon and get a chance to talk about these after show if you support us at the $10 level. Also, consider supporting us at any level. $1 an episode keeps Pro Gun Radio coming in at you every week. Patreon.com/week. You can contribute to the Firearms Radio Network and This Week in Guns by shopping our Amazon affiliate link or clicking the Amazon banners on our website. Bookmark firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. Firearmsradio.tv/Amazon. Use that link every time you shop Amazon and you support Pro Gun Radio. Full auto news segment, stories the real media won't talk about, and other crazy stuff. This is where each of the hosts picks a story to call their own. And while you guys are making your selections, I want everyone else to go over to firearmsradio.tv, click This Week in Guns, and click the JWB Military and Brass giveaway. It's an orange text right there at the top. Click that. Enter to win free 9mm 308 5.56 ready-to-load, high-quality, ready-to-load trimmed brass. JWB Military and Brass giveaway. Again, go to firearmsradio.tv, click This Week in Guns, and click the JWB Military and Brass giveaway. We also include a free Patriot patch with that for that winner. We draw a winner once a week, so head on over and click that. All right, who's ready to go? John?
I'm ready. So, we've talked about AKs in the past and how that market is growing and how it's gaining more accessories and cool things like that. And we had seen not that long ago, Dead Air came out with their AK suppressor, AK dedicated suppressor. We are still waiting to see that thing really hit the market, but they announced it. It looks awesome. The name of it is slipping me. Adam, do you know what
Wolverine.
The Wolverine, that's what it is. Great name. So, in that same vein, one of my favorite AK manufacturers, Krebs Customs, they're in Wakanda, Illinois. Those guys are awesome. Mark Krebs is a great guy. And one of my favorite suppressor manufacturers, Liberty, those two companies came together to create the A-Chaotic. It's essentially Liberty's chaotic suppressor made for an AK, which is one of the coolest things ever, because seeing more things dedicated to the AK platform is going to make that market expand, and AKs are awesome, they're fun, they're cool, and I love them.
Very cool. Nate, what do you got?
All right, so this is pretty ridiculous. meet the ultimate first responder AR-15, right? So Tracy Copeland, I don't even know what the name of the company is, right? So anyway, these people filed for a patent that basically allows you to replace the buttstock on the nefarious AR-15 that we're trying to ban this week. And you change the buttstock out for a selection of rescue tools, right? So you can have a fireman's axe for a buttstock, which I don't think that would work out too well for you. Or you can have like a hoolie or a crowbar or like a demolition bar. There's so many different attachments. But the thing about this is, I believe me, I love breaching, and I think breaching stuff's really cool. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to combine a tool with a firearm, which is two things that like breachers need. But the problem with this is the tool threads into the very soft aluminum lower receiver of an AR-15. So if you actually try to use like the pry bar to pry open the door, you're probably more likely to destroy your rifle than get the window open. So, but it's worth checking out the link because there's some pretty hilarious figures and schematics of this concept that is just going to crash and burn and probably see light of day.
I have an idea. I once saw, and we talked about it here on the show, a weld-together AR-15 kit. It was steel pieces that were like sandwiched together, and you would weld it and then make it into. It was kind of like one of those build-your-own kits, right? In theory, that steel would be a better choice.
You're talking about a steel lower receiver?
Yeah.
Oh, I machine things for a living, and I can only imagine how miserable and how expensive it would be to make a steel lower. The other thing is, look, how an AR-15 attaches is two little pins for the upper and lower. So if you're using the barrel for leverage, that's a lot of stress on those two little. I just don't see it working out.
Don't make sense about it. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I see this as much more successful in the video game world.
I just want to watch somebody cut their face on the axe when they try to shoulder the gun. That's all I want to see.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
So here's one that's kind of near and dear to me. The TSA apparently in the last week found 67 firearms in carry-on bags, 54 of them loaded, 22 with a round in the chamber. I know a lot of you guys travel with guns, and I just don't know how it's possible to be that stupid to bring a loaded firearm into your carry-on bags. I travel a lot teaching and hunting across the country with my guns, and I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I think it goes back to that whole education thing that we've been talking about.
The other thing is they found some dummy grenades and other ridiculous things.
I mean,
it's Ninja Stars.
Let's talk about
on you.
Of the percentage of people that travel, how many? What percentage does this represent?
Oh, I don't think it says.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm curious about that because I don't think they're going to use this to justify the TSA.
Oh, 100%. I mean, they did one thing right. They still haven't caught any terrorists. But again, at the end of the day, we have to talk about our own responsibilities, and we're not making the fight any easier for ourselves when we're doing something like, bringing a loaded gun on a plane. I
but
mean,
some of this stuff looks illegal to me too, like that lipstick stun gun. Like
but what about
I
that?
don't know.
There's that tourist judge though, bro.
I'm a big fan of the throwing stars. That's funny.
The Bear Grylls axe.
Yes. Oh. Well, like if you look at like these weapons that were like discovered in an X-ray machine, like the kind of person that would have a tourist judge and ninja stars is probably the kind of person that would forget to take it out of their carry-on. I'm just saying.
Well, anyways, there are right and there are wrong ways to go about bringing firearms onto an airplane. If anybody has any questions on how to do that, I do it frequently. I've, at one point in time, traveled with 17 firearms. It was an interesting experience, but on an airplane. If anybody wants to know how to do it, feel free to reach out so you don't end up the source of mockery like one of these folks.
You know what pisses me off about these government agencies like this, and yes, I'm getting angry again. The fact that they make zero effort to actually educate people.
It's not their job.
Oh, it's not their job to make sure people don't get arrested?
No, you're supposed to know the law and the regulations.
That's constantly
Ignorance is no excuse. Yeah.
Yeah, ignorance is no excuse, they'll say.
And that's the other thing. Since you're talking about it, I saw recently within the last month, I want to say TSA is now prosecuting people for this, or the government is anyway. And the fines associated with it are astronomical. So if you're traveling, make sure you're traveling correctly. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time.
Also, there is weight limits on ammunition.
Yes.
I found that out the hard way.
I had a client who found that out the hard way too.
Well, I went in I was taking ammunition down to Georgia for a video I did with the Iraq Vet 8888 crew, and it was like I figured it would be a round count issue. Nope, it's weight. I was like, what do you mean? Well, you can only have XYZ amount per bag of ammo. Excuse me? I'm like, it's like 2 boxes. What's the difference if it's in this bag or that bag? Well, you can't have more than... What arbitrary bullshit is this? Timestamp. Sorry,
I'm so glad I haven't sworn yet.
I'm very impressed. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm trying, man.
He's doing good. He's better than me right now.
All right, I had to step away. Did Adam go?
No.
Go for it.
Not. So, my story here is police, 3 Sandusky women assault McDonald's employee for working too slow. Children participated. So these 3 lovely women, 2 of which are smiling in their mugshots and appear to be addicted to methamphetamines, apparently assaulted a McDonald's employee because they thought she worked too slow. And that's pretty much the entire story. And their children participated. They had their children helped, and 2 of them were also charged with child endangerment.
Just give it a year, they'll assault the kiosk that replaced the worker.
So.
All right. As always, we had lots of great stories for Full Auto. Oregon cowboy lassos bike thief in Walmart parking lot.
That'll pretty good.
That's pretty good. Tennessee man arrested for DUI while wearing chastity belt.
I was thinking of doing that story. But
did you read that one?
I didn't get a chance to, no. Don't know if I want to.
West Texas drive-by shooting over a piece of buttermilk pie. I want to know what buttermilk pie is.
Yeah, I've never even heard of buttermilk pie.
Committing a drive-by for.
Is it as good as bacon pancakes is the question.
Make a pancake, make a bacon pancake.
It says investigation continues on the drive-by pie fight.
Buttermilk pie.
Yeah, it's
what if all terrorism could be solved with buttermilk pie?
There's somebody out there stupid enough to believe that. They think they think that we can hug this problem away instead of dropping JDAMs on
it. Those are very different responses.
Wow. We need like a Nate Mer quote dictionary or something? America is my jam.
Jake doesn't like making money, or else there'd be a whole series of Nate Murr patches.
I don't like losing money.
Oh,
So, did
It's about to
anyone
get
take
rowdy.
the 2 injured after gun and donation bag goes off at Salvation Army?
No.
So 2 people were injured when a gun and a bag of donated clothing went off in Salvation Army in Beach Boulevard Friday in Jacksonville, Florida. So, yeah.
Damn it, Cletus! I told you to take the gun out of the bag.
Well, that's something I really wonder about. Every time, I take something to Goodwill or something, how often does, because old people, they'll keep guns in funny places, and how often does someone clean out an estate and just kind of throw everything in bags and take it to Goodwill, Salvation Army, and there's like ammo or guns so I'm thinking, maybe I should go by these, places and be like, hey, if I know you don't accept guns or ammo, but if some would happen to come in, here's my number.
Funny story. We were cleaning out an estate of guns and throwing a bunch of stuff away. Somebody had some World War II Japanese grenades live grenades in a crate marked Christmas ornaments.
Yes.
Merry Christmas!
Yeah, it was.
I'm hanging these grenade ornaments up, and the pins keep popping out of it.
Yeah. It was a harrowing experience.
Pum, boom!
Yeah.
Well, I think that is a solid end to the full auto section. So, too many stories to cover. As always, support us on Patreon, $10 level, and you can hang with us after the show. And also, check out the other levels at patreon.com/week. We have like Patch of the Month Club, T-shirt of the Month Club. We have these ammo dump, we call them ammo dump boxes or supply dump boxes, where they're full of swag, basically. Not really ammo, but check that out. A bunch of different levels. Patreon.com/week. And also check out Patriot Patch Company at patriotpatch.co. Have some TGC swag over there. Some gun entrepreneur shirts left, some TGC shirts left, and also have a 4 Guys Guns patch over there. Check that out. patriotpatch.co/partners. And that's new pre-orders are live as well. Check that out. Leave your feedback by commenting on the bottom of this YouTube video or the bottom of the show notes. And we are to the part of the show where we see what these guys are up to. Hey, Nate, what is up in your world, and where can people connect with you online?
It's the usual spiel, staying busy, moving around, pushing the rock, all my usual metaphors. But no, you can reach out to me directly on Instagram and Snapchat now. Just look up GripStop, one word. You can check out my company, Connect Development Group, on Facebook and Instagram under that name, and you can check out our website, kineticdg.com, to see the coolest firearms accessories on the market.
Very cool. Matt, where can people connect with you online, and what's up?
At DRF Training on Instagram and Twitter, and Downrange Firearms Training on Facebook. I think my new website launches next week. If anybody's looking for any type of training or anything like that, please feel free to reach out.
Very cool. If I'm a journalist that is prone to PTSD while shooting AR-15s, can I apply?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll mock you horribly, but it's fine.
Very cool, John. What's up, and where can people connect online?
You literally can't connect with me at all, anywhere, ever. I'm never responsive or engaging at all. No, so I'm working on the TGC Q&A panel video. That has been a very, very, very long video to edit. I never, ever do videos that are over, 15 minutes, and this is 3 hours of content. But it's really good. There was a lot of great questions, so that'll be out hopefully early next week, maybe over the weekend if I'm lucky and get through it. So that's going on. TGC as usual is continuing to do what I do, and hopefully soon there'll be some more things. I'm actually working on something with Mr. Kraut here to try and bring him in and help talk about the legal myths that are out there. And I figured Adam would be a great person to do that. We're actually kind of building and creating the new show as we go. So, that's kind of what's going on. If you want to find me, just type The Gun Collective into your Google machine, and there I will appear.
Adam, what's up, and where can people connect online?
If we're talking about connecting online, you can check me out on Instagram at moose00015. You can check out the law blog.princelaw.com, on Facebook, Prince Law Offices or Firearms Industry Consulting Group. I don't know. This week's been interesting. We got messing around with some stuff with John earlier in the week, and then got sworn into the Middle District of Pennsylvania, the federal district court. So now I'm able to practice in front of all 3 districts in Pennsylvania in the federal court system, and I did so in style with my Colt Defense M16 tie because political correctness is overrated, and I think I did offend some people, but oh well.
Very cool. Always good to offend people.
Such is life.
Leave us a review on iTunes or however you listen to the show. If you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Give us a thumbs up. If you watched the stream, you're not going to see this part. I don't know if Facebook cuts streams off at an hour and 30 minutes. It seems like that's what may have happened in this instance.
Probably what happened.
Yeah, I went and checked the streamer, and all my end was running fine, and Facebook just ceased to. Actually, the Facebook back end still looked like it was running, but the front end shut down exactly an hour and 30 minutes. So, really appreciate everyone watching live on Facebook. We're going to try that again, and see how that goes. So, also please contribute to the show using the Amazon affiliate link. firearmsradio.tv/Amazon, and check out all the other awesome shows here on the Firearms Radio Network. Thank you, Nate.
Thanks for having me on, Jake. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, John.
Hey, Jake, you're welcome.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Jake. Always fun to be on here.
That's a wrap. We'll see you next week.